Question is, describe a beautiful city, and you have 1 minute to prepare. Then you can speak for up to 2 minutes. All right.
Right.
So just take a deep breath. Imagine you're actually in the exam room and really try to get into the mindset of the test taker. Right.
Okay.
Your time starts now.
Okay.
Okay. Tell me about a beautiful city.
I'd like to talk about Paris, which I consider one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Okay.
Paris is located in northern France and serves as the country's capital. I first learned about Paris through movies and travel documentaries, and I was fortunate enough to visit it last summer.
Right.
The city has numerous iconic landmarks, with the Eiffel Tower being the most famous one. There's also the Grand Palais, which is currently under renovation, and the magnificent Louvre Museum, which was once a palace. Paris is famous for many things: its fashion, cuisine, art, and romantic atmosphere. People know it as the City of Light and the global capital of fashion. The city is particularly well known for its cafes, haute cuisine, and fashion boutiques. I think Paris is beautiful because it perfectly combines historical architecture with modern life. The wide boulevards, carefully maintained gardens, and uniform building heights create a harmonious urban landscape. The way the city lights up at night, especially the Eiffel Tower's sparkling display, makes it truly magical.
Okay. Excellent. Now let's move on to part 3, where we dig a little deeper into some related topics.
Okay.
First question, what are the differences between modern towns and modern cities?
Modern towns and cities mainly differ in size and facilities. Cities have more job opportunities and better infrastructure, while towns are usually smaller with fewer amenities but a stronger sense of community.
All right, good. Next, how can people preserve historical buildings?
People can preserve historical buildings through regular maintenance, careful restoration work, and implementing strict protection laws. It's also important to educate the public about their value.
Okay, making good progress. Now, why do some people like to visit historical places?
People visit historical places to learn about different cultures and understand how people lived in the past. It's also a way to connect with history personally.
Interesting. Now, for a slightly different perspective, why do people go to modern cities?
People go to modern cities for better job opportunities, education, and access to modern facilities. They're attracted to the lifestyle and conveniences that big cities offer.
Okay, good. Let's talk about some challenges. What are the problems caused by maintaining historical cities?
The main problems in maintaining historical cities include high maintenance costs, dealing with weather damage, and balancing preservation with modern development needs.
Right. Now, considering the impact of tourism, do you think having too many tourists is a positive thing for historical attractions?
Having too many tourists can be both good and bad. While they bring money to the local economy, they can also cause overcrowding and wear and tear on historical sites.
That's a good point. Following on from that, what can we do to stop visitors from damaging historical places?
We can protect historical places by setting visitor limits, creating designated pathways, and having strict rules about touching or damaging artifacts.
Good ideas. And finally, do you think too many tourists are a positive thing for historical attractions?
While tourism brings economic benefits, too many tourists can harm historical attractions through physical damage and overcrowding. It's important to find the right balance.
Great. So you've just completed part 2 and part 3 of the IELTS speaking exam using those sample answers. Before we hear from the second individual, take a moment to reflect. What stood out to you about those responses?
Well, I guess the answers were pretty straightforward and easy to understand, I think.
Yeah, and that's important, right? But think about the language used. How clearly were those ideas presented? And what about the overall structure of the answers? What impression do you think they would make on an IELTS examiner?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it would depend on what the examiner's looking for, right?
Exactly. This is your deep dive, so actively engage with the material. We'll be back with the second set of answers, and then we'll really unpack what makes a Band 9 answer shine.
And we're back. So now we're going to hear from the second person answering the same describe a beautiful city question, okay?
All right, and as you listen, remember to keep thinking like an examiner. What are they listening for?
Right. And think about how this person's answers are similar or different to the first person.
Exactly, yeah. Pay attention to the vocabulary used, the way their answer is structured, things like that.
Okay, so get ready. You've got 1 minute to prepare, and then you can speak for up to 2 minutes. And the question is, describe a beautiful city.
Okay, so think about what really makes a city special, what makes it stand out to you, and then how you can best express that in English.
All right, your time starts now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, tell me about a beautiful city.
Well, I would describe Singapore as a remarkable city-state. I think it really exemplifies the harmony you can achieve between urban development and natural beauty. It's located at the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula. And honestly, Singapore has fascinated me ever since I first saw it in a documentary series about innovative cities. It was really interesting. The architectural landscape is extraordinary. There are iconic structures like the Marina Bay Sands, the one with a distinctive ship-like rooftop.
All right.
And then there's the gardens by the bay. The super trees there are just mesmerizing.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. They look amazing.
And of course, you can't forget the Raffles Hotel. I mean, it's historic, but it still has that colonial charm.
Yeah, very cool.
And Singapore is also renowned for its cleanliness. Everything is impeccable. And the public transportation system, it's so efficient. And it's a global financial hub, too.
Yeah.
But I think what really sets Singapore apart is its approach to urban planning. They've really integrated green spaces throughout the entire city. It's earned the nickname City in a Garden for a reason.
I've heard that.
I find Singapore beautiful because it's a perfect blend of efficiency, innovation, and natural elements. The way they've created a sustainable urban environment while still preserving their cultural heritage, it's remarkable.
Excellent. All right, now let's move on to part 3. We're going to explore some more in-depth questions related to cities and history.
Okay.
So as you listen to these answers, I want you to compare them to the previous ones. Think about how this person is elaborating their ideas, giving more nuanced responses. Really think critically here, okay?
Got it.
Okay, first question. What are the differences between modern towns and modern cities?
Well, I think the differences between modern towns and cities, it goes beyond just their size. Cities, well, they typically have more sophisticated infrastructure, right? They have more diverse economic opportunities and just more complex social structures. Whereas towns, I think they usually have a stronger sense of community and more personalized services, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Next, how can people preserve historical buildings?
Well, historical buildings, they can be preserved through, I guess you could say, a combination of both technical and administrative measures. So that would include things like regular structural assessments, using appropriate restoration materials, and implementing strict conservation guidelines. It's also important to make sure there's sustainable funding for these projects, maybe through public-private partnerships or something.
Right, good. Now, why do some people like to visit historical places?
Well, I think historical places, they attract people because they offer, a tangible connection to the past.
Yeah, it's like you can really step back in time.
Exactly. And you can have authentic cultural experiences, and you can understand the evolution of human civilization.
Right.
And some people, I think it satisfies their intellectual curiosity. And of course, there are always unique photo opportunities, let's be honest.
That's true. Okay, shifting gears a little. Why do people go to modern cities?
Modern cities? Well, I think people are drawn to them for the economic opportunities, for sure.
Yeah.
But also for the cultural diversity, access to healthcare, and educational institutions. I mean, the promise of career advancement and exposure to innovation and technology, those are strong attractors for a lot of people.
Okay, good. Now let's talk about some challenges. What are the problems caused by maintaining historical cities?
Well, maintaining historical cities, it's a challenge. I mean, you have to balance modernization with preservation. That's a big one. And then, of course, you have to manage the impact of tourism, secure funding for all those restorations.
Right.
And you also have to deal with environmental factors that can speed up deterioration.
Yeah, so many things to consider. Okay, now regarding the impact of tourism, do you think having too many tourists is a positive thing for historical attractions?
That's a tough one. I think the impact of so many tourists is kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, tourism provides essential revenue for preservation efforts. But on the other hand, if there are just too many visitors, it can actually lead to the site being damaged, in cultural commercialization. And sometimes it can take away from the authentic experience for other visitors.
Yeah, that's a thoughtful answer. Okay, building on that, what can we do to stop visitors from damaging historical places?
Well, to prevent damage, we can implement more advanced monitoring systems, for example. Okay. And I think it's important to do a better job of educating visitors, about the site, its significance, and why it needs to be protected. And of course, there should be clear guidelines for behavior And, maybe we can use technology to offer more virtual tours. That way there's less physical impact on the site itself.
Excellent. And finally, one last reflection on tourism. Do you think too many tourists are a positive thing for historical attractions?
Large numbers of tourists, it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it provides much-needed funding for the maintenance, and it can boost the local economy. But it also has the potential to compromise the integrity and authenticity of those historical sites.
Mhm.
So it's definitely something to think about.
Fantastic. Okay, so now that you've heard both sets of answers, you're probably starting to notice some key differences, right? Let's take a short break, and then we'll come back and really dive into what sets those Band 9 answers apart.
All right, so we've heard two different approaches to the same IELTS questions. What was your first impression? Did one of those sets of answers stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that first set of answers, they were grammatically correct, and they, addressed all the questions.
Right.
But the second set of answers, they showed a much higher level of sophistication, and they had more depth, too. And I think that's really crucial for getting that Band 9 score.
Yeah, it's like they were speaking a whole different language, even though they were answering the same questions. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It all comes down to a few key things: vocabulary, grammar, and then coherence and cohesion. So let's start with vocabulary. Did you notice anything about the words the second person used? Like, were they more impactful, more descriptive?
Yeah, for sure. Like, instead of just saying beautiful, they used remarkable to describe Singapore. And they said that it exemplifies harmony. Those words are way more powerful. They really make an impression.
Exactly. They consistently chose vocabulary that showed a much wider range and a more nuanced understanding of the topic. Words like distinctive or mesmerizing or even impeccable. I mean, those words paint a really vivid picture for the examiner.
So it's not just about using big words. It's about choosing the right words, the ones that really have an impact.
Absolutely. Now let's think about grammar for a second. So the first person, the grammar was generally okay. But the second person, they were using these more complex sentences, and they were more accurate, too.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. So when they were talking about preserving historic buildings, the second person said, historical buildings can be preserved through a combination of technical and administrative measures, including, and then they listed all these specific examples. That shows they really have a good grasp of grammar and that they can express themselves in a sophisticated way.
Yeah, it's like they're showing off their grammar skills, but in a natural way.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to coherence and cohesion. These are super important if you want to get a high score on the IELTS. So coherence, that's basically about how well your ideas are connected. Like, does your answer make sense? Is it easy to follow?
Got it.
And cohesion, that's about using language to smoothly connect your sentences and paragraphs.
So it's kind of like writing a really good essay.
Mm-hmm.
Everything flows together nicely.
Right. Exactly. And the second person, they were great at both coherence and cohesion. Their answers just flowed so naturally with these clear transitions between ideas. For example, they connected their description of Singapore's urban development to the reasons why they found the city beautiful. And that created a really cohesive and engaging answer.
Yeah, it all makes sense now. This deep dive has really shown me that even tiny little differences in language can have a massive effect on your IELTS score. It's not just about being right. It's about showing that you really know how to use English well.
Exactly. IELTS examiners, they're looking for people who can communicate well and who have a sophisticated understanding of English. And if you work on your vocabulary, your grammar, and make sure you've got good coherence and cohesion, then you can really boost your answers and hopefully get that Band 9 you're aiming for.
Okay, so what can our listeners do to get better in these areas?
Well, you've got to immerse yourself in good quality English, read lots of different things, listen to podcasts like this one, and most importantly, practice speaking as much as you can. And when you're listening to native speakers, pay attention to the words and grammar they use and see if you can try using them yourself.
And don't be afraid to push yourself a little. Try to express your ideas in more interesting and complex ways.
Exactly. The IELTS speaking exam is your chance to really show off your English skills. So with the right preparation and the right attitude, you can be confident, you can express yourself clearly, and you can achieve that score you want.
That's great advice. And remember, you can always come back to this deep dive and listen to those sample answers again. Analyze the language, look at the structure, pay attention to the flow. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. the easier it will be to do it on exam day.
Absolutely. And don't forget, have fun with it. Learning a new language is a really rewarding journey. And the IELTS, it's just one step on that path. So keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep diving deep.